Paul Schrade, who was with my father when he was shot, was a union leader, one of the heads of the United Auto Workers. He was the guy who recruited Cesar Chavez into the labor movement. And he introduced him to my father, and they became best friends. And so Paul was very, very close to my father and was with him. The first bullet that Sirhan fired hit Paul Schrade in the head. And Paul Schrade has never believed that Sirhan killed my father.
Wow.
He knows that he shot him. But Sirhan, and so I ended up, Paul forced me to sit down to read the autopsy report, stuff I never wanted to do, and to look at all the evidence that has accumulated since my father's death. And
so Ethel's your mother, right?
Ethel's my mother.
Right.
So Sirhan there was 77 eyewitnesses in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel when my father was killed. And many, many of them had a view of what happened. Very few of them could view the whole scene, but they could view parts of it. Everybody, without exception, places Sirhan from 5 feet to 10 feet away from my father in front of him. He never got behind him. He was always in front with a table between them, a steam table. Sirhan fired 2 shots at my father. The first one hit Paul Schrade in the head. The second one hit a door jamb at my father's head level behind my father. Then he was grabbed by Carl Olker, who was the concierge at the Ambassador Hotel, and by Rafer Johnson and 6 other people. It was a dog pile, and they all piled on him, and they grabbed, the first thing they did was grab his hand. They directed in the opposite direction, and they could not get the gun away from him. And he was powerful as like a Superman, they said. So they were all trying to take the gun away from him.
He's only this big.
He's a little guy. And he fired 6 shots in the other direction. All of them hit people. One person got hit twice, but all those bullets are accounted for. There were only 8 chambers in his gun. And 2 were fired toward my father and 6 in the opposite direction. And we know what happened to every one of those bullets. My father was shot 4 times. One of the shots, and all 4 times were from behind.
What?
And with a gun and they were all what the coroner, Thomas Noguchi, said, contact shots. And the barrel of the gun was touching my father when the trigger was pulled. And he had carbon tattoos from all 4 shots. One of the shots went harmlessly through his sleeve and through his shoulder pad. All of the shots were fired from a low angle toward the ceiling. Whoever fired those shots was standing behind him, concealing the gun and firing at the same time that Sirhan was distracting people, essentially. And the person who almost certainly fired those shots was a security guard who was holding my father's arm at that time, called Eugene St. Caesar. And a dozen people saw him with his gun drawn. My father fell back on him, and as he fell, he turned and pulled off Cesar's clip-on tie. Cesar lied to the police about his gun. He told many, many different stories about when he had drawn his gun. He lied. He said he did own a .22. The police didn't talk to him that night, didn't confiscate his gun. The time they talked to him, he said, yeah, I owned a .22, but I sold it a month before the shooting. As it turns out, that was a lie. He sold it a month after the shooting, and he sold it to a man who worked with him in the high security section of the Lockheed factory here in Los Angeles, who then moved to Arkansas, later talked to investigators and said, yeah, he had a receipt for when it was sold, and it was sold in July. My father was killed in June. And Cesar told him at that time, this gun was used in a crime, so don't talk to anybody about it. Caesar, as it turns out, is a CIA asset. He died about 3 weeks ago, and he died in the Philippines, where he's lived for the past 3 decades. And but he's almost certainly the person who killed my father. Now, his job as a security guard that night he got 5 days before, when it was already known that my father was going to be speaking there. We don't know exactly what happened, but there are, and then, the investigation was a botched investigation. It appears to have been deliberately botched by the LAPD. It was run by people within the LAPD, all of whom there was a special unit created called Special Unit Senator to investigate my father's death. Almost all the members of that unit were ex-CIA agents who had trained in the CIA farm in Virginia and shipped down to Latin America to do dirty tricks work there, and then brought back for this investigation. And they destroyed, before Sirhan's trial, they destroyed 1,200 pieces of evidence, including all the bullets. And about 1,200 photographs as well that were taken in the room that night. There's a lot of questions. I believed that there had been a trial. As it turns out, there wasn't a trial. Sirhan's attorney was an attorney who somehow, and nobody can explain how, he was a mob attorney who was representing Johnny Roselli, who had been, at that time, there was a famous trial in Los Angeles called the Friars Club trial. You know what the Friars Club is?
Please.
What is it?
The Friars Club is where they started roasts.
Oh, okay.
And it was all the Rat Pack actors like Joey Bishop and Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin.
Sammy Davis.
Yeah, all of those guys were members of the Friar Club, and they'd get together every couple of months and roast one of their members. And to get in there, you had to be wearing a tux. And they also had a gambling, a poker game or a gambling casino. I'm not sure which, but there was a poker game in there. And as it turns out, Johnny Roselli was the owner of the club. Johnny Roselli was the CIA's liaison to the mob.
Wow, that's a trip. I used to read about him. He was in the 20s, too.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy. He was a devout Catholic. He didn't have a home address, but he was tied in with Giancana, but also Carlos Masallo and Trafficante. He had installed secret cameras in the Friars Club so they could read everybody's cards, and they were cheating. He got caught, and he was on trial at the time my father was killed, and it was a huge trial. During that trial, his attorney got arrested for having the grand jury transcripts, which is illegal for anybody to have. It's a serious crime. You go to jail for it. And somehow he had gotten the transcripts of the grand jury. So, and clearly the mafia had bribed somebody to get that, given it to the attorney. The attorney wouldn't tell where he got it, but he was facing criminal charges, also disbarment. And in the middle of all that, he was somehow appointed as Sirhan's attorney. He told Sirhan to plead guilty. If Sirhan had pleaded innocent, there was no way that he could have gotten convicted, because the bullets that were in his gun, the bullets that killed my father, did not match the ballistics of the bullets in his gun, or the bullets that hit the other 8 people in the room.
Cover up big time.
Wow.